Well, we're live, so I think, sorry, is everyone ready to give this a shot?
Yeah.
So thank you all for joining us today. As many of you already know, back in June, we launched the Beyond the Hashtag platform in order to facilitate change in our industry and to provide a space for our community to have honest conversations regarding race. We did so to help shine a light on the lack of diversity in our industry and work collectively to find ways to change the status quo. As stated in our mission statement, we've set out to listen to stories from people of color. We want to learn how we can be and do better, and we want to act on sustaining change in the design industry and beyond. Thankfully, we have had the pleasure of connecting and collaborating with the Mid Collective, a growing group of BIPOC interior design professionals that started here in Boston. Today, we're happy to have them join us again to moderate this roundtable discussion on racial equity in interior design education. And lucky for us, some of them are all here in our office today. So please welcome Nicole from the Mid Collective now to give some background on their organization and describe their mission. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us again for our second roundtable. We're really excited to be here. And as Pete mentioned, we have partnered with Beyond the Hashtag. They have been an exemplary allies and what an ally should be. So basically, the genesis of the Mid Collective is to really amplify, celebrate, and nurture the creative voices of BIPOC interior designers in Boston and beyond. Alongside our ally professionals, we provide the space to connect, unlock opportunities for our peers, and empower the creative potential of our youth. We firmly believe that a just and accessible industry leads to design experiences for the benefit of all humanity. And there, I'm going to pass it on to Brian, I think.
Yes. Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate it. As Pete mentioned earlier, the Beyond the Hashtag platform was launched in June to provide a space for our community to have honest conversations regarding race. For those of you who had the pleasure of attending our first table discussion, you'll remember that we were honored to have 6 members of the Mid Collective team share their stories with us. Elise, Nicole, Kenneth, Jeremy, Sasha, and Alini all had an open dialogue of what it was like to be a person of color in our industry. From these stories, we learned that the lack of diversity in our profession goes back further than the professional industry itself. It starts in higher education, secondary school, and beyond. Today, we're going to be listening to stories from local university and college educators. We'd like to hear from them what their institutions are doing to attract a more diverse student base, what obstacles they're facing with this mission, what they think can be done to improve access for BIPOC students, what their respective universities and colleges are doing to foster diverse teachings, and how they think universities and colleges can better mentor a student through a rigorous interior design program. We're also going to be listening to stories from a recent graduate of a local university. We'd like to hear from her how she found interior design as a profession, what her recent higher education experience was like, what she thought were successes and failures of her experience, and what she thinks could be done to help foster an even more successful higher education process for all. Why we're here today and how we started this was based on these statistics that we found, which for those of you who joined us in our first webinar, show the major disparity between races that are represented in our industry. On the left is a chart of the racial diversity represented in our country. And on the right is a chart showing the racial diversity within the design industry. Obviously, we have some work to do. Another statistic to share with you, more focused on education and on interior design education, on a national level, only 6.3% of US interior design degrees were awarded to Black Americans in 2017. And on a more local level, you can see statistics from people we're speaking with today from their universities and colleges that show the disparity between minorities and people who are not of color, less white people. So it's obvious there is a disparity here. And even going further into it, what's really interesting is that Rose, who represents Mount Ida College back in the day, who is now at UMass Dartmouth, she has had the opportunity to switch from a private school to a state school, and you can see that the needle is starting to turn with that access. From here, I'd like to introduce you to our moderator for the night, Derek Makita. He is the Interiors Resource Manager at CBT Architects. Welcome,
Hello.
Derek.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. So I'm here to introduce the panelists and also facilitate the discussion. So Brian's going to help us click through and introduce the panelists. First up, we have Rose Body Slitsky, and she's the Program Coordinator and Associate Professor at UMass Dartmouth. We have Denise Rush. She is the Dean of the School of Interior Architecture at the BAC. Nancy Hackett, she's an Associate Professor and the BFA Program Director at Suffolk University. And Nicolette Gordon, a recent graduate of Interior Design Program, and she is an interior designer at BH+A here in Boston. So welcome to all of our panelists, and now we're going to launch right into the discussion. So I'm going to pull up my little outline here. Give me just a moment. Okay, so first, we'd like to talk a little about community awareness of interior design as a potential career path. So Nicolette, could you tell us a little bit about what led you to interior design as a profession?
Absolutely. So I recall, going back to high school, that kind of transitional phase, right? When you're starting to think about what do you want to do as a career? What college do you want to go to, et cetera, et cetera. And I really had to have kind of like a tough talk with my mom as a first generation student coming from parents from the Caribbean, Jamaicans, really having to sit down and my mom saying, listen, we don't have the funds for you to figure it out when you go to college. You got to figure out what you need right now out of life. And that made me, halt, take a step back, figure out what I love. I loved being creative. I loved engaging with people. I loved kind of formulating spaces. And it really led me to, oddly, a Google search. And in that Google search, I kind of started to just put in those keywords, creative, spaces, blah, 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 trying to figure out what I'm looking for. And it led me to interior design. And then that was kind of just a deep dive to figure out, okay, what is interior design? But there was not really anyone to say, here, there is this career that you could go into. I really had to figure it out on my own and cross my fingers and hope and pray that once I got to where I was trying to go, that it was exactly what I envisioned. So that was kind of how I took it from just being like a normal high school student to figuring out the field and kind of trying to penetrate it.
So I'm thinking it might also be helpful to talk about what other organizations and programs exist to help expose students and families to the idea of interior design as a paid profession. Nancy, could you speak on that for me?
Well, one of the best programs that I've seen in the area of Boston is the Artists for Humanity summer program for students who are high school age and are interested in the arts. And these are actually paid summer programs where the students are interning and producing artwork and then getting exposure to different types of careers. And they actually are having open studio calls right now. So you can go onto their website and join an open studio walkabout and see what they're all about. Suffolk University has hosted those students at the school, at the university, in the late summer, early fall when they're completing their internships. So they're taking that artwork, bringing it up to campus, getting some exposure to different types of college degrees, and through that interior design, because we've had an interior design program for 25, 30 years. The other thing that we have done at Suffolk in particular is the high school college preparation program in the arts. And this is where high school students, either juniors or seniors, can come and work on 5-week-long programs that actually do a lot of art, drawing, color work, and can help them start to put together a portfolio. Now, sometimes portfolios are seen as an obstacle to enrolling in college degree programs like architecture or interiors, but many schools are starting to have open enrollment, whereby you can put together the portfolio in your first year by taking classes on campus. So those are some of the things I've seen.
Very cool. So many students start their post-secondary education without interiors as their primary objective. And we know that some of your programs have outreach efforts targeting VOTEC students as well as community college students. So Rose, could you give us a glimpse into UMass's outreach efforts?
Absolutely. We have a nice relationship with not only our VOTEC high school students, but with our community colleges. So we have a nice transition program from the community college where you can start in your own community and take some of your liberal arts classes, and then it's a smooth transition right into the department. Another effort we have, which is now that there's a state program that offers an interior design degree, is a dual enrollment option. And this is part of the Massachusetts Board of Higher Education, one of their strategic initiatives to expose students who might not have the opportunity in their local high schools, and they can take their first few classes for free. So it has some restrictions on your GPA, and but we've had some of our first students do that last semester and this semester. So it's really exciting that now that there's an option for this for high school students.
Awesome. So Denise, I believe the BAC also has an outreach program to community college students. Could you tell us a bit about those efforts?
I always forget to unmute myself. Yeah, so we also do outreach to community college students. Our admissions teams, they go to college fairs, they recruit at community colleges, and we also develop articulation agreements, meaning that we have reviewed the various community college programs, and the students at those colleges know exactly what credits are going to transfer and where they can begin. And in addition to the community college outreach and the articulation agreements, we also have a summer program for design discovery for anyone interested in spatial design. And if you're a junior or senior high school student, you would then be able to earn 1.5 credits towards college if you decide to go further with that design exploration.
That's fantastic. So if a student is interested in pursuing a formal interior design education, there could be barriers to access. Rose, what would you say is or could be inhibiting prospective students from accessing these formal programs?
Well, I think one that Nancy addressed is a portfolio. A portfolio really can be a blocker for students. And many of us have created alternative ways because some of these programs in high school, you might not be exposed to art classes, or you might not have the opportunity to have a conversation about what is a portfolio. So we do have summer programs that help facilitate and nurture and expand your portfolio. But also what we've done here at UMass is you can defer being accepted into the program, and your first semester is sort of like a foundation exploratory, and then everything that you create in your first semester, you submit as your portfolio. So it's basically like a deferred portfolio. So they come in as undeclared, or they can come in declared, but they have to make sure that they submit the portfolio. And I think too, the other opportunity is to go to some of the open portfolio. We're part of NASAD portfolio days. So those are across the country, but they're right in Boston, where students can go and sort of have conversations with professors and just have an open dialogue, and that's for free, and get some ideas of what else they could do to enhance their portfolios.
Cool.
That's it.
Yeah, I think you were also mentioning when we were talking before about some of the financial barriers to access as well.
Absolutely. So it's an expensive major. Some of the financial barriers that we talked about could be software, hardware, and as a state school, we certainly are seeing now that the tuition is much more affordable and attainable. being that you can have an in-state tuition or start at a community college and be part of the mass transfer block. And that's a nice transition to help with the financial cost of a full 4-year program that is extremely expensive.
I can just add too, Rose, we talked previously about the fact that a lot of the major players in our industry are starting to provide free software to give access to the kinds of programs that are typically pretty expensive to buy. And so we are seeing more buy-in from people like Revit and SketchUp and all of these software giants. Hardware, you know, is still another issue. And as we've gone online in the last year, you know, the hardware becomes more important because the students are off campus.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Nancy. That's so true. We just heard that Enscape is also offering free to any student that reaches out. And that's wonderful that Autodesk and Enscape are having that accessibility and realizing that students are working from home and they're having difficulty trying to balance everything, getting the hardware, getting the software. And it really has been, I'd say, you know, a significant open access to students as they're not only entering higher education and the profession, and this is something that they will just gain basic knowledge using a VPN and dialing in and understanding how to work remote and not have to always rely on going into the studio.
So Nicolette, I want to throw this over to you because you had brought something up previously when we had been talking about the fact that a lot of inner city art programs are underfunded and how that might be contributing to the lack of awareness or that barrier. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Absolutely. So as far back as I can think in my academic study journey, I've never taken an art class before I got to college. One, because a lot of inner city schools don't provide the opportunity to take art classes. They're either completely cut out of budget. Maybe the only creative class that you're able to take is like a music class for a semester. But it's never anything long enough or extensive enough for you to really explore art passions. And so because of that, when I was first going into college, I did not have a portfolio. What I did have, the skills that I did have was, you know, reading, writing, math, etc., that you learn in high school, and trying to use those skills to kind of compute that into what I needed for interior design as best I could. And even, you know, I did take extra classes through a program called Stepping Stone, but again, those are mainly academic focused classes. So even though I was going to school after school and on the weekends and through my summers, I wasn't exposed to major art classes, painting, drawing, creative expression. And it's really a hurdle because then not only are a lot of schools for interior design asking for those portfolios, so that can deter students that didn't have the opportunity to kind of build it before, but then you also don't get the opportunity to learn how it is for your work to get critiqued in terms of artistic expression. And so that's kind of, when you get to that point where you're doing it for the first time, it's extremely intimidating. So it's kind of like that, the barrier between not having the actual portfolio, but then also, you know, this is your first time making things to put into a portfolio, and that receptiveness, or like, are they going to like it? Am I not going to get into the program? Because that's really what it's being based off of.
Well, let's take this one step further. So we talked about barriers to success. So once students have arrived at your formal interior design programs, there could also be significant barriers to success once they've started. Can you tell us a little bit about what issues might arise? Denise, I'll throw it over to you.
Yes, so many times when students do arrive, you know, getting ready to study spatial design, their interior design programs, they may find that they don't have the hardware, meaning they don't have a computer. So in the physical world, we have wonderful computer labs, so they can access all of the software, you know, at no charge to them. But since we've pivoted to online, we've had to find a way to still support our students equally. So now we have BAC in the cloud, so it's a VDI network where they have access to all of the software from their home computer. Our dean of students and the administrators at school find a way to bridge the gap when a student does not have the hardware, like they may not have a computer, or they may have a weak or unstable Wi-Fi connection. So we're finding ways to bridge that gap, but that's often the barrier. It's like they get into the program, but now it's a digital world, and how do they access all of the digital tools? So we meet them where they're at, and we really want to make sure that everyone has access.
Yeah, you also had mentioned though that there's a culture shock that happens when people arrive at these programs sometimes. Could you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, so with the culture shock, many of the students are first generation to go to college, and it is really a labor intensive field. It's more than just studying, reading a book and writing an essay. They are making models, they're cutting foam core, and it's really time consuming. So we really have various ways to partner with the students, peer partnering, conversation partners for students who have English as their second language. And we really want to meet them where they're at to bridge that gap and teach them how to be a good student, because we are an open enrollment, open admissions, rolling enrollment school. So year round, we're admitting students from all walks of life. So we really take it upon ourselves to take that charge of our mission and meet them where they're at and guide them through the college process.
Yeah. Nancy, did you want to chime in?
I think Suffolk has done a very good job of addressing that first-time college student, whether they're the first in their family or they're just coming from a background that didn't have a lot of access to rigorous structure of schooling. And so our peer-to-peer tutor program is really well used and recommended by faculty. And basically we're having upperclassmen tutor younger students in our design programs because they're the ones who know the programs. They're the ones who can kind of say, here's the tricks, this is how you get that over here really fast and how you duplicate that and don't have to redraw everything all the time. But the other issue for students that I find in the freshman year is really time management issues. They've got 5 classes. There are now studio classes. There's this outside studio work you have to do. It's a lot of hours. And so managing the time, how much am I going to put into this studio versus drawing 1 versus art history 1 is really a tool that they need to learn. And so the tutoring center actually offers, a class in how to manage your time and how to project where you're going to be at the end of the week. And that's been very necessary.
Rose?
Yeah, I might want to take that class. That could be beneficial for all of us. I was going to share, we just had, and Nancy sparked my memory, yesterday we have our new first years in. Since some of our studios are face-to-face and some are online, we were on campus yesterday, and I had one of the upperclassmen come in, and we've done this program where we team up the underclassmen with the first years, and it's like a mentoring, but it also gives them like a buddy that they can reach out to and someone that they might want to ask questions to. So we're in the process of doing that, but one young man, he came in and he is a work study in the program and jumped on and said, hey, I'm a SketchUp guru. Let me show them everything I wish I knew when I was here for a first time. And like Nancy said, they knew all the tricks, and it was just a beautiful moment that seeing an upperclassman that had walked through the door, just a few years ago in their same shoes, but having that sense of ownership and empowerment and really being participatory. And that's what we hope to see, not just what we do in the classroom, but beyond, and how we interact with the profession and what do we do to give back. So it was just really, it's a perfect example and very timely for what we're doing right now. And also shared how to access all the software and what they do and things of that nature.
So Nicolette, I'm curious, did you feel that you had the resources that you needed to be successful, or are there some things that maybe the colleges and universities are still lacking?
So for me, this is a yes and a no. So yes, in the sense of I was always a very outspoken person, and I came from a family that will kind of do anything in their power to make sure that I had the resources. I think, again, because I was that first generation going into a field that none of us knew about, my mom especially wanted to always try to bridge any gaps or any kind of, not even gaps, but like precipices that she saw in my school future. And so really making sure that, like, if I came home and was like, Mom, you know, Rose told me to buy this $300 book and I'm confused, my mom would be like, okay, let me call Rose. There was always that kind of support system, not only just from my family, but also from Rose as I was going into kind of my educational journey into interior design. And then to touch on what Nancy and Rose have talked about, and kind of like this new learning dynamic with what has happened with COVID, because now everything's kind of online, which is awesome. Because although a lot of interior programs had computer labs, we all know, again, as Nancy said, time management with interiors can be tricky. And especially when there are so many students using the computer labs, especially, you know, around thesis time when the seniors need it, don't think about going in there because you're not getting a computer. So now that a lot of things are online, it creates better opportunity for, if you are a student that needs a little bit of extra time on your computer to figure out your project, etc., you can do that. And that in itself is tying into why I say no. Sometimes I didn't feel like I had the resources, because there are limitations sometimes, whether it be you don't have a computer lab or whether it be you don't have the knowledge that others in your class had. And that can take a kind of psychological toll on you a little bit as a first-time student, especially in a new major, because you know, you're already hard on yourself. You want to do good. You want to be successful. And there's not really anyone, as far as I knew, telling you that it's okay to fail. Sometimes it's okay to not get something on the first try. So when you're trying to figure out interiors and you're trying to figure out these new computer programs and you're trying to figure out what's happening in school, and you know you're a first gen and your family's doing everything that it can, all of these burdens start to kind of pile up. And it becomes like a really, really heavy load. And so I feel like the resource that I kind of missed most being a student was having kind of a safe space to talk about those experiences. Because I was outspoken, I developed friendships with seniors and classmates, etc., that I could be like, this is crazy. What is happening? Are you feeling like this? Is it just me because I'm different? Like, you know, you're trying to figure everything out. So I feel like, especially in interiors where you might come in thinking it's going to be really easy, you can just make things beautiful, and then you get hit with that brick of like, this is hard, what is happening? Having the safe space to be able to talk about those frustrations and like really be open about your experience, I think is really, really essential. Because like I said, I'm a student, first gen, I'm doing all my classwork. I also was an RA. I was on the dance team. Like you're trying to take on so many things, and before you know it, you're burning yourself out. And like, even this may be a completely different topic, but the burnout rates in interior design are huge. So you don't want to do it in college still. You want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, etc., so that you can really be in the game for the long run.
Okay, so we've talked about what some of the potential stumbling blocks are. Let's talk about what's being done to help make these programs more accessible to people. So Rose, I think you wanted to talk about the mass transfer block.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that we have a public option in the Commonwealth, I feel like this is a real game changer that's opening up affordability for those that it wasn't an option before to pursue a career in interior design. So it works very closely with some of the community colleges. For your gen ed courses, you can save up to 28% as it transfers into your 4-year degree overall. So that's really significant. And also, based on the GPA, you can receive a 33% tuition waiver. So the cost and the affordability and the doors and the potential it has, needless to say, you can tell I'm very excited about it. And I'm looking forward to really having people who just felt like they couldn't pursue this now have a path coming in, and working very closely with our state partners at the community college level.
Very cool. Nancy, you also wanted to talk about some of the alternatives to a portfolio as part of the missions.
You're muted.
Nancy, you're muted. Don't worry.
Sorry, I had some noise.
Start all over again.
So in order to make interior design programs more accessible, some of the things that are going on at Suffolk and other schools are things like these articulation agreements with the 2-year colleges. We have a lot of transfer students from Bunker Hill, and although Bunker Hill doesn't have interior design per se, they have graphic design, they have art, and even students who are taking English but also picking up some art classes are welcome to apply, and they're already pre-evaluated for their credits, which is a big help, because transferring and losing half of your credits is not something students want to do today. It's too expensive to do that. So articulation agreements are one thing that really helps. The other is this sort of flexible portfolio entry where you can do it in your first year, you can delay it. Others have gone to completely open enrollment, no portfolio required. So that is loosening up, I do believe. But I think that one of the other things is that, requesting a tour, requesting an interview with the head of interiors, helping students, make the jump to go see it, and being an advocate for yourself as a student is really important. I find that those students who actually make it to campus in their junior or senior year and see what's going on are much more likely to apply. So really one of the challenges is to get high school students awareness of these programs and of these degrees. And that includes things like us going out to career days in high schools. But I think it also includes taking recent grads who are of color and having them go back to their community and saying, this is my career, check this out. There's other options out there. So although we can do a lot as, exporting ideas, we also need the help of the recent grads and even current students to go out to their own communities and say, check this out, get involved.
Yeah. Denise, did you want to chime in?
Yes, so we are a non-traditional school. Not many people know that our classes are at night. So that is one way that we make it easy for a student to continue to work while going to school at night. And we are open in admissions, meaning you don't need ACT, SAT, you don't need a portfolio. All of our students, no matter what program, architecture, landscape, interiors, you go through a foundation year. And in that year, you will develop work that you will submit at our portfolio review for those first year students, be it graduate or undergraduate. So we are really there to help a student succeed in the interiors program. And we really make it accessible because that is our mission, to be accessible. So that's why we're open admission. If you have the desire, we accept you. And then if they still stay around after that first year, we have our students work in the profession. So they're working in firms and going to school at night, which is a whole another topic, but it makes it quite challenging time management wise, but it makes it accessible, particularly for students who need to work in addition to any financial aid they may have, and they're going to school at night.
Okay, so let's speak directly to the issue of diversity in interior design programs. What is your college or university doing to help boost diversity within your programs? First, we'll go to Rose.
Oh, I think we did touch on this a little bit where we said that we're going out to some of our VOTEC schools, some of our community schools. Now that we're located, community high schools, things of that nature, now that we're located down on the South Coast, there really wasn't an option for an interior design degree. So since our arrival, the community has embraced us. We have been an active community partner. We've teamed up with some of the local high schools. We've teamed up with some of the K through 12 schools and interacting with them on some service learning projects. We've worked with Kearney Academy, which was really fun because our students were able to, and also the YMCA, our students were able to go and meet individuals that are living, families in the community, and have an impact and put a face to where we are part, what our community looks like right now. And that has been really a wonderful experience. And it really has expanded. We're very strong with service learning and engagement. So being that we're part of the expanding what we do, educating what we do, and how we can interact with the city of New Bedford. We have our lighting design who helped the students do a new Wings Court project down there. So we really have been embracing ourselves and participating in the community.
Nancy or Denise, did you want to chime in?
Sure. I think one of the things that Suffolk has done is this Art and Design's summer pre-college program, and that really gets students interested in the arts and gets them to try it out. And it's not a very expensive program, and it's meant for 5 weeks in the summer, so that's been a good feeder. I think that we, at Suffolk, they have a Center for Diversity and Inclusion, and it's run by a woman named Beatrice Patino, and she actually is reaching out to both pre-college students and freshman students to make sure that they are, feeling welcomed, adequate to the task, and, and supported in those first years. So those are things that Suffolk is doing. Admissions as well is in charge of going out into the community at the high school level.
Denise,
And I would agree that the BAC does very similar things. That our admissions team, they go to minority college fairs to recruit for students. They do international recruitment because we have 30% international students. So we are out really trying to strengthen what we do to attract diverse students. So it's an ongoing process, and we definitely want to get better at it.
Yeah. So going beyond what's already in place, how do you feel these institutions can improve the way that they build and nurture diversities within these programs? First, we'll go to Nancy.
Well, it's interesting because, because we're all CETA accredited schools of interior design, which is the Council for Interior Design Accreditation, we're all required to have a certain amount of projects that actually exemplify diversity, that are not just Eurasian centric kind of projects, that are addressing different cultures, different problems, even accessibility issues. So we do that in our curriculum, and I don't think everybody sees that because it's a curriculum that, we graduate people with it. It maybe shows up in a portfolio, but people in the community are not seeing that. So one of the best ways I think we could advertise for ourselves is to get some of that work out in front of the communities, and that includes the high school student community, but their parents as well. And so bringing that either online or in person to our larger communities would be really helpful in expanding the word. So I'd like to see that happen, actually.
And Rose?
Well, I agree 100% with what Nancy said, because we're all following the same indicators that we're trying to fulfill. But I think also pushing it to the next level and being an active, engaged in our community. Today we actually had Professor McGoldrick was downtown New Bedford working with the Community of Economic Development of Southeastern Mass on an initiative for revitalization of the retail shops. So our students were there working as part of a service learning, expanding their project knowledge, working with the real client, and really it is an academic exercise, but what a wonderful opportunity to be working directly with a client, to have that experience that it's a transferable skill that you're practicing and they're getting nurtured because they're in the academic environment, but also to be giving back to the community that we're so happy and grateful to be part of. So on that aspect, we've been really lucky that we've only been here for 3 years now. We're entering our 3rd year. This is our first year of really recruiting our first class, and we've already been active and engaged. We also had the James Arnold Mansion reach out. We're doing a little historical preservation project for them. So it really runs the gamut from everything that's in our curriculum: lighting, historic preservation, retail, school, educational. We've worked with Meeting Street School on accessibility projects. So not only that we're part of a curriculum and we're educating the students, but also that we're walking the walk and we are being active community members and exposing the community to what we do as a design profession. This is viable, it's attainable, and it's not just for the elite. It's for everyone that wants to commit to a career path. Everyone deserves good design.
Denise, did you want to add anything?
Yes, so the BAC has something similar with service learning. We have a department called Practice and projects called Gateway Projects. So they're typically nonprofit organizations that need design help. We partner a professional designer, architect, interiors person, landscape with a group of students. So they actually get to solve the client's problem. And so for that, they learn, this is on top of their class because it's part of our practice department, so it's non-academic, but it is service learning. So the community knows about that and comes to the practice department with their need, their design need, and it's a beautiful thing to see, and they get to share their solution with the school. But I like with Nancy suggesting that we need to really share this with the broader community so more people are aware of the impact of design.
Absolutely. So,
And I would like to say, sorry, just like on the same topic, from a student perspective, it's not just the community that you need to teach. You also, are looking to teach your students about each other and their heritage and kind of the paths that they all led. So maybe taking some of these projects and doing more of an internal look. Okay, well, tell us about your culture. Let's learn about Rosa's culture or something where like you're learning about the diversity of your own group of designers, not just other people. Because sometimes, interior design can kind of look like, oh, we come into your community and we're just here to make it better and then we're going to leave and never see you again. Like you're a part of that process. So it's not just like external, it's internal as well.
Yeah. I have to say, Nicolette, Zoom classes have really had us enter our students' worlds. And the first thing I say is, what time is it in Egypt? And what's the weather like, and what's going on over there? Because some of my students are in Saudi Arabia, some are in Egypt, one is in Mexico, and they were all sitting in my 4:30 p.m. Monday class. So we're getting a little bit of opportunity to share culture just because of the fact that we've gone distance learning, and it's been an interesting experience.
I do like that as well. I do like learning about where our students are, and just to touch on a little bit what you said, Nicolette, we tend to see our students take agency in their capstone project because we have such a high diverse number of students. So we've seen projects that are in Roxbury or Mattapan all the way to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, Mumbai, and they are projects that are based on their culture. So we're learning more and more about why it is they're doing certain things. And it really is a beautiful thing because you do learn about the cultures of the students, and everyone is supported. Their viewpoint is from their perspective, and we take that and we learn from it.
Fun.
I just got a flashback of the spaceship Earth ride from Epcot, thinking about how we're all interconnected and doing everything over video chat now. So it's very cool to see that that's sort of come true. So I'd like to wrap it up and throw it over to Nicolette, because I think she's had experiences with mentorship and how important it was to her career development. So I'd like her to finish up our session by talking about those experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned before, I was able to really get through my interior design studies by connecting with people. And I kind of learned to value that from early on, engaging with seniors, engaging with, people who are older than me, or engaging with my professors to really figure out what was going on in interior design, because it was so new to me. And so I really just wanted to take that kind of energy and give it back to students. One, because sometimes I can be a little bit more relatable than the professors. And students know that I'm going to keep it real with them. I'm going to tell you exactly how, I see it, or how the world has been for me, and really just being able to hear a different perspective, because a lot of times all of our journeys are very different. So I've kind of always been one to really want to give back, whether that was through, Rose sometimes being like, hey, we have a project that we're reviewing right now. Do you want to come in and just talk to the students, or, review their projects or something? And kind of being like that fresh voice for people, I think is really, really important, because you really want to take it just 360. You want to be able to be like, I was exactly where you were. Now I'm in the professional realm. I haven't quite got to where the professors are, but it's the trajectory. That's where we're going. So I'm on this journey with you. If you have questions, ask me, because like I said, I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to tell you, it's not just work all the time. You're going to have fun moments. Enjoy it. Maybe take a step back. If your project's not going the way you want it to go, look away. Have somebody else look at it. Be comfortable in your space. So I think that's always been huge. I was able to, like I said, mentor for students, but I've also done ACE mentoring. All of it has been like being able for me to give back to the process that has been able to kind of bring me to where I am. So I think it's just, if any interior designers out there, and I know we live super, super, super busy lives, but being able to really take a pause, and if you can't, mentor through an entire semester, maybe you just come in and do a review with students, or maybe you're a person that a student can look for to be a mentor. Maybe they can just give you a call, or you can have lunch with somebody. Every little bit kind of counts, especially with students of color, variety of colors, but non-colored students as well. We're all just trying to figure it out. So really going back and giving back and forming those connections will not only kind of make you feel a little bit better, because you're able to give back that knowledge and continue the cycle of the profession growing, but also allows the student to know that, like, okay, now I know where I'm trying to get to. Maybe one day they want to be a Nicolette, and that's a great thing to be, Just kidding, but of course, like, making their dreams seem a little bit more attainable. And I think that's why I like mentoring super, super important.
Absolutely. Did anyone else want to chat on mentoring before we wrap up?
Very important.
It is.
So
Really,
important to see yourself.
it is. And you know what? Honestly, we say a lot that representation matters. And I think that representation and mentorship opportunities also matter greatly. But, even if you just consider yourself an ally to the BIPOC community, you have the power to assist people and lift people up. And it really doesn't matter the color of your skin. It really doesn't even matter your experience level. You might find your experiences very mundane, but to other people, you would be a fountain of knowledge in how to get started in the industry, how to be successful in the industry. What are some of the pitfalls that you saw? So your experiences are important, and helping connect to people who are trying to get into the industry is super important.
That's a good point, Derek. I find oftentimes mentoring also being the conduit, because they just don't know where to start. we usually have a career day for interior design that we all participate in, and it's ASID, IIDA, and it's held at the Design Center, and we get to go visit firms, and many times we reach out to the local high schools. Well, not just local, I think it's all the high schools, and many high school students come and have over the years. And you could see, they're excited about the opportunity, but just don't know how to start that conversation. And so we do reach out, and we have strong connections with the K through 12. I saw that was a question coming up. And just exposing to us as conduits that can help facilitate. Don't hesitate to reach out, send an email. I got a really nice email from a young lady this afternoon who wound up not even coming to the school, but just wanted to touch base and say thank you, even though she chose another school. And I'm so thrilled that she did reach out because, and I'm happy she's pursuing her passion, and where she's happy and comfortable. So it's a great profession, and I feel like we're all very approachable and supportive. Even though Nicolette says you might want to talk to a recent grad that might be more approachable, so it might be nice that we also have more recent grads that we could share contact and references and resources with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And on the same note, no shade, Rose, I love you. It's just, for me, Rose has always been that person that I know I can go and talk to. So really, like she said, having somebody that's approachable. She's like the only person that my mom would let me leave the country with, and knowing that I'd be protected. And, even when we did leave the country, Rose had to tell somebody to back up because they were looking at me crazy. Because it's not just in the U.S., it happens outside of the U.S. as well. So having somebody that you can talk to about just about anything, from what's going on in your life as a student or outside of your life as, whatever, if you get into the professional world, knowing that you still have those contacts that you can go back to and talk to and kind of walk through your journey with, and knowing that although sometimes you may be quote unquote alone, you have that person that can stand there and be like, I got your back, whether they look like you or not. Majority of my interior majority of my interior professors were all white. But I never, I was in a space where I could feel like myself. And when there was that moment where, in my academics, I didn't feel like I was just looked at as a student by a teacher, I was able to go to Rose and say, listen, this is the deal. And she ensured that safe space was always there. So really having people who are allies for you, not just, people who look like you, but people who may not look like you or come from different backgrounds to you are super essential, because as long as they're willing to fight the fight with you, you're going to be able to progress. And that's really what we all come here to do, to make sure that our careers are progressing, our students are progressing, our communities are progressing. Like, we want to make sure that we're creating safe environments for people to grow and be nurtured.
Yeah. So while Brian pulls up our last slide, which is the thank you slide, and I introduce Elise, who is on our board for the Mid Collective, to talk a little bit more about how we can help you get involved. I'd like to just put a plug for everybody who's listening to this webinar, that if you go on your LinkedIn profile, and we all have them, and you put on there you're open to mentoring young up and coming talent. People don't underestimate the ability of you to just put yourself out there, and the connections will find you. Truly.
Yep.
If you could all do that, I would appreciate it. And with that, I'll kick it over to Elise to talk a little bit about the Mid Collective.
Yeah, so first, thank you everyone for joining, and also to our panelists. Listening to the educators and also Nicolette speak, this is the whole reason why the Mid Collective really started. One, it started because we wanted to connect with our peers, but all of us really wanted to start to give back to our communities, start to mentor, be the representation that we don't have. And I think someone actually put this question in there. We don't have a lot of mentoring programs for interior designers. There's ACE, NOMA has the project pipeline, but nothing really grounded and really exists for interior designers. And that's also very telling of our profession. Just professionally, we have to fight to, basically have architects realize the importance and the value that we bring to the table within a project. So that is already one layer. And it's important that, we have this representation and we're able to mentor. So that is one of the main objectives for the Mid Collective. And as Nicolette mentioned, and we mentioned in our first panel discussion, because the lack of the pipeline exists, right? There aren't a lot of BIPOC interior designers or creatives or reps for that matter that exist. So we have to rely on our allies and our non-BIPOC creatives, designers, and reps to really take that center stage and mentor and be able to provide that growth so that we can grow the pipeline, because we cannot do this on our own. And we also want to say that for any students that are on this call or any educators that would like to have access to a larger collective of BIPOC creatives, the Mid Collective is here. We're happy to be that connector. And just reach out to us. We're happy to jump on critiques. We have a lot of members that are ready and willing to do the hard work. So thank you so much. And also thank you to Beyond the Hashtag, one, for the beautiful background that you see back here at Workflow, but also just really fueling this, helping us to fuel this conversation and to target the right audience and to be honest and open with themselves and us as a profession. Like this is an issue, this is a problem, but we want to start to do the work to solve it. So with that, that's all. I could probably keep talking.
And just so everybody knows, our next roundtable topic will be inspiring future designers, developing talent in secondary education. So we're going even further back in the pipeline to talk about some of the programs that are at middle schools and high schools that are starting to develop the creative talents of future designers. So that will be our next topic, and you can all look forward to that. So with that, I will thank all of the panelists for joining us, and I will thank Beyond the Hashtag for hosting us, and my family with the Mid Collective for putting together this topic. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you.